Lord of the Rings is racist, don't you know? Yes. How sad. How sad and pathetic that we have this conversation very, very often. Basically, every single year, it does seem to be, there'll be a new article. Tends to actually be an article on The Guardian. This is a Daily Mail report where they basically are saying, hey, there's a university of Nottingham, pinnacle of education, the University of Nottingham. And basically saying, hey, you will not pass this course, actually, unless you say Lord of the Rings is racist or some crap. It's pathetic. It is absolutely pathetic. It's one of those things that happens every single year, and it's one of those things that actually Amazon tried to address when they had orcs be like family things. They were like, oh, the orcs actually aren't bad. No, the orcs are bad. And that's okay. Because they're monsters. They're not an allegory for race. Like, they were once elves. They're not humans. They're now monsters. Anyway, let's take a look, shall we? So, oh God. Now, Lord of the Rings is racist. I like how the Daily Mail says now. It's like this is a thing we do all the time. There's always an article out there because they just try to just chip away. It's like a little man with a hammer slowly trying to chip away at English specifically, but British identity. And Lord of the Rings is synonymous with British identity. It's one of the most loved books in Britain. And Tolkien had written it as a modern day myth, basically. A modern day fairy tale, a myth and a legend for the English, for the British to have. And can't have that, can we? Not allowed that. Anyway, whatever. So a woke university is telling students that J.R.R. Tolkien demonises people of colour in the Lord of the Rings books, according to reports. Right. Well, how? Pray tell, how does Tolkien demonise people of colour? A history module. History? There's a history module talking about J.R.R. Tolkien. Mental. Called Decolonising Tolkien et al. Taught at the University of Nottingham. Uses a text that says orcs. Again, orcs aren't humans. They're not people, they're orcs. They're literal monsters. They couldn't be any more monstrous. They are not humans. But everyone's like, I see myself in orcs. Well, that says more about you than anyone else, mate. Anyway, orcs and other dark-skinned characters in the best-selling trilogy are the victims of ethnic chauvinism. Brilliant. Brilliant. People of colour. So, there actually isn't black people. There isn't really. There were men from the East. There were men from the East. And there were men that sort of rode in on elephants. Were they oliphants? Were they called oliphants in Lord of the Rings? It's been a very long time since I read Lord of the Rings. I think they were called oliphants. But they weren't. They were described as. They were described as dark, but they weren't explicitly black. And they also weren't, strictly speaking, like the evil characters in Tolkien. They were just sort of like hired armies by Sauron, basically. And orcs are actual monsters. Actual monsters. And yeah, they're black, but they're actual monsters that were once beautiful elves, which are still not human. Weirdos. Oh, well. The historian who leads the module, Dr. Onyeka Nubia, argues that Eastern races in the fantasy novel are depicted as evil, while fairer-skinned peoples of the West are shown as virtuous. Well, if you wanna actually draw some kind of comparisons, right? The Eastern races, you could draw a comparison, I guess, to a degree, with the Crusades. And actually, the Crusades, I mean, if you know anything about the Crusades, Christianity was kind of pushing back on Islamic colonization of Europe. So, if you want to actually draw a comparison, I mean, you're going to have to say the part out loud was that it's an allegory for the Crusades, I guess. I mean, it's not, I wouldn't even say it's that, genuinely. But if you really want to look really deep and hard into it, maybe it's an allegory for the Crusades. And by that virtue, then you're going to have to admit that Islam was a brutal, absolutely brutal, barbarian, colonizing force throughout history. Right? That's what the Crusades were about. If you don't know any of this, look it up. Like, it's mad. Absolutely mad stuff. Well worth looking up just because it's fascinating. And it'll make you go, huh, why do I not know this? Genuinely, you'll be like, what? Why were we not taught this? And also, like, why would the people of the West in Tolkien not be shown as virtuous when he's a Westerner? That'd be weird, wouldn't it? Normally it's only lefties that hate themselves. So, you know, it wasn't, I don't know, whatever. So anyway, in academia, decolonizing usually refers to moving away from a white Western-centric worldview. Well, you are in the West. You should probably hold a Western worldview, to be honest. It'd be weird holding like a Chinese worldview in Britain. I'm not saying they want people to hold a Chinese worldview, but you can see, like, you should hold a Western worldview in the West, obviously, because that builds a homogenous culture and society that all strives together and moves forward and does great things. Anyway, in the modules, key text, Dr. Onyeka writes that maligned peoples include Easterlings, Southrons, and men from Harad. I think it was the men from Harad that was a bit... I can't remember. I remember the Easterlings. Anyway, so the trilogy also features the dark-skinned orcs. Yeah, actual monsters. Evil creatures. Yeah, actual creatures, yeah. Like actual, like just literal monsters. They weren't supposed to be black. They were just actual monsters that do the bidding of Sauron, known as the Dark Lord. Yes. Yeah, because like pitch black darkness is scary. And so, I mean, I don't even know where it comes from really, but the fight between good and evil is always depicted as you know, dark, shadowy. And maybe it's because it's the fear of the unknown, right? Like Lovecraft had a fantastic quote about the greatest fear of mankind, or the greatest fear that mankind has is the fear of the unknown. Something along those lines. And that's true. You know, we fear what could be in the dark. We don't, and it's actually the anticipation of the potential of what lies within the dark that's actually scary. Right? Horror movies build on suspense. If you show the creature, they're not that scary. And so, maybe that's where good and evil, light and dark comes from. I don't know. But okay, can't call him the Dark Lord anymore. Retard. It adds that Tolkien's treatment of the fictional races participates in a tradition of anti-African antipathy. They're actual monsters. What are you talking about? It says a lot more about you than anyone else. If you look at an orc and go, "That's me, mate. That's you're being racist towards me." Like, that's weird. In which people from Africa are depicted as the natural enemy of the white man. No one said any of that. They're actual monsters that were once elves. What are you talking about? So the module also explores racial issues in C.S. Lewis' The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe. Ah, amazing. Even Narnia is not safe from racism. Bloody hell. I mean, who the fuck looks at this and goes, that's me? I'm an African. That's me. Like, what? You're mental. You're actually mental. Dumb people. The Kalor men in the fantasy novel have long been seen by some as exhibiting Oriental stereotypes. They're described as cruel people with long beards and orange-coloured turbans. Oh. I don't know much about Narnia, to be fair. Anyway, students of the course in Nottingham will also learn to repopulate the literary canon of British folklore. With what, non-British things? Then you're a cunt. Stop it. Britain has a long and storied history. We, England, Britain, quite literally created the Western world, right? All these idiots that come here now have luxury beliefs because great men came before and allowed them to hold those beliefs. And you are stupidly trying to erode that. It's sad. Anyway, Dr. Nubia provided articles which stated medieval England had diverse populations. It didn't really, though. It actually didn't. But that ethnic chauvinism was evident in literature, including Milton's Paradise Lost, and that the theme persisted in the works of Tolkien and Lewis. Shove it up your arse. He also claims in the core module text that Shakespeare's work helped to promote a vision of a fictional mono-ethnic English past. But we were... Like, Americans, you will not be able to comprehend it. But, like, up until... I don't know, like the 90s, this country was like 95, 96% white. We have been a homogenous white country for like 1,000 years or so. Yeah, you might have the odd one or two, but it's just history. Like, it's not saying that's good or bad. It is just history. People are mental. Mental. His plays are said to be problematic for failing to include direct references to Africans living in England. Ah, right, okay, yeah. Yeah. Creating an illusion of racial homogeneity in England. I mean, it was. You tard. It was. Just because there was like one or two doesn't mean like it wasn't homogenous. You're an idiot. Anyway, this isn't the only time universities have faced controversy over so-called woke decisions. Yeah. I mean, this is dumb. I can't really be bothered to read much more of this, but... just sad. Absolutely sad. Again, whoever looks at an orc and goes, that's me, or that's my people... I think that's a you problem, to be fair, mate. I think that's a you problem.